All right, folks, sorry for the delay. This is going to just be kind of a loose show. It's not really rehearsed or formatted, but I am going to work on some line of sight. And basically what I'm doing is taking an existing module that was created in Classic, and I have it loaded in Unity. So what I'm doing now is I'm adding the occluders and all of the line of sight data and any of the effects that I want to use into this particular module. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I want to be able to sell it online, probably the DM's Guild. So in order to do that, you have to make copies of the original and put them back into the same folder that they belong into. So in other words, I have a module loaded, which is the Merle T. Jack's Wilderness Outfitters. And then I have my Maps and Images folder open. And in here, there are duplicates of every entry that is in the Maps and Images, or at least the ones that I want to alter. So not all these images are going to have effects or line of sight, just the maps mainly. So what I'm going to do is show how some of this is done, but I wanted to bring that up front first so you understand why I have duplicates. So I have the main module, which is this Wilderness Outfitter, and I need to change that to Outfitters because that is the title. And then I went ahead and took all of the maps that were in the original and I made copies. So now I have one of each. The ones that are included in the module have the little book next to it. The ones that I have made copies of do not have a book next to it. Those are the ones I'm going to edit. And the reason for that is later on when I'm all done, I'm going to export the data or the line of sight data only. So not the module, not the graphics, just the coordinates and the settings for those. And they will go with the original module in which it'll be zipped up so that you can use this module in either Classic or, in this case, Unity. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I have it in my own group called Wilderness Outfitters. And this is the original name for the group, so I don't think I should change that. To be honest, I think I need to change that back. So I just about screwed this up. So I need to leave that as the original file name. If you don't, when you go to export this, it could mess up the export. And then when you go to load it up, the line of sight data will not be there or something will be jacked up. So you want to try to leave the original module the way it was. All right, so let's see what else we got going on here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is take and start doing some of the line of sight data. I apologize if I don't get back to you right away. I'm not able to monitor the screen and the live chat. But I'll try to get back to you if you have any questions. Feel free to leave a tip or a message in the chat, and I will try my best to field your questions if you have any. So right now, I'm going to go through and start actually showing you some of the work that I've already done. So this is the bathhouse at night, and this is part of the Wilderness Outfitter. So if I open this up, this shows the map of this particular module at night. I haven't done much to it, but it does need to have some work done to it. First of all, there's this obnoxious looking grid. So I'm going to unlock this. Even though this grid was here before, I'm going to go ahead and unlock it. And this grid data came over from the original. What I'm going to do is make sure it's centered, which it looks like it is. And then I noticed that I've already put mist on it. It's kind of hard to tell because it's very subtle. And then I'm going to turn down the intensity of these lines. So if I go to the grid layer. Right now, the intensity is probably 100%. So I'm going to go, basically I can turn down the alpha channel, which is the basically the transparency, and turn it down a little bit so it's not so obnoxious. And then if you want to, you can also change the color. I think I'll just leave it at that though. So then hit OK. That's a lot better. That's not as obnoxious. And I don't know if you could see this, but there is a pool here, which is basically like a bathtub. The only way I can really check that is if I go to the combat tracker, and then I can load a PC for checking. And then when I'm done, I can just delete the PC. But I'm gonna import one that's actually completely done, so I have some more things to work with. If you don't have any way to really check it, then you can have a player instance and then switch back and forth. So that's probably the best way to do it. All right, so I'm going to just grab one of these characters. Let's see. I'm going to go with here we go. Here's Doric Rockfist. It's one of my infamous characters. So he's now been imported. So if I go back to character selection, he's available. So I drag and drop him onto the combat tracker first, and then you pull him out and put him on the map. And then you have to change this to play mode to check your work. So it's in play mode now. I'm no longer editing. And if I pick him up, it would show line of sight if I had line of sight enabled, but I don't. So in this case, the only thing I would be checking is just to see if I could see the water and the steam if I zoom in, but it's really very subtle. It's almost not even needed. But as far as line of sight goes, since this is a dark map, I don't even think it's necessary to put line of sight on here. It does kind of block some of the vision, so I might have to, but at least I know that the effects and such are working. So I think I'm going to use a different map to illustrate how this works, since this one's really dark. So this one won't show you, exactly what you need to see. So I'll go ahead and close this for now. And then I have a cover here, which really isn't a map, but it is the cover to the module. So if I wanted to really make this fancy, instead of just having this static image, I can make it come to life. So basically, if I go to the cover and the one that's not embedded in the module, the one I'm editing, I've already done that. So I put this little snowy background in here so that you have a little bit of kind of brings it to life. And all I've done is create the snow effect, and then I put a mask around it so that you don't see the snow coming in and out of all the different areas. And to demonstrate the mask, you have to come on to this area. And I also mess around with the time of day, so it's a little darker. And this particular effect is nothing, so we don't need that. But then you have snow. So if I wanted to turn down the amount, I can make it a little bit more subtle, which I think looks better. And then turn down the intensity a little bit. There we go. So now you can see the cabin more and it's not too aggressive. And then the size of the snow itself, I've turned that way down to like 2. And then I have this corner here that I forgot to unmask. So I already have the mask on. And if I go ahead and click reveal area, I can take the Alt key and remove this little area here. And the Alt key allows me to draw without making a square. So what I've done there is unmask that area. Well, I have another mask on there. It's probably this time of day. So if I do the same thing, then I'll be able to use this as well. So it's just a matter of how you mask and unmask your spaces that you want to show the effect in. I think that's pretty good. It's good enough. But it gives you an idea of some of the usages that you can use for this. So that's just a way to make your photos kind of come to life so they're not boring, you know. So you look at this cover and you go, oh, cool, there's the cabin. And so that's just one way to enhance your game. The other thing is the file names need to match. So in other words, this cover has to match the name of this cover. When you copy it over, it's going to say copy at something. You have to get rid of all the extra characters and make sure that both the file names match. And the only time this is pertinent is if you're trying to make a copy of a module work for both Unity and for Classic. If you're building everything in Unity just for Unity, you don't have to do all that. So here's a bulletin board that is in the game. And when I open this up, what do you know? There's some snow in there. And I even put a little bit of mist over it. So I think it looks a little bit obnoxious, so I'm going to turn it down. So if I go to layers and go to the effects layer, I am going to basically turn down the amount of snow and the size. The intensity might be okay. And then there we go. So it's not quite as, and then I'll turn the speed down. So it's not quite as obnoxious. And then I'll look at the mist and I'll turn that down too. Yeah, so it's moving a lot slower now. So in the neutral position, it's at 0, but if you go plus 50 or minus 50, it'll change direction and then speed. So if you go all the way to 100 or all the way to 0, it basically turns into a storm, basically. So I just turned down the amount, and that really cleaned that up. So that's a good thing. So all this is a services thing, and then when you click on it, you'll be able to get different things in this lodge, or in the cabin. So basically, this is our bulletin board, and it's just trying to illustrate that it's snowy out. So one thing that I can do to occlude this outside here, so it's not in the snow, is again, if I go to the layer, the effects layer, and I go to reveal area, you can cut down the snow that way, provided there's a mask on it. This one doesn't look like there's a mask. So now there's a mask, and if I actually, oops, it only will put the clouds inside of this picture. And I'll do the same with the snow. So here's the snow. I enable the mask, that blocks everything. And then if I edit up here where it says reveal area, all I'm doing now, just like in the Classic when we had the mask, is you just unmask the area that you want to show. So in this case, it'll just be in the square. So that way you're not having snow all over the background. So that's how you take care of that. So that is part of, making your module come to life, making it look nice. So I thought it'd be nice to add a couple little doodads like that. So it's not always the maps. There's other things in your book or in your module that stand out. So here's another handout. Same thing. I need to go in and occlude or block out. So this is the Outfitters handout, and I need to make sure I'm editing the correct one, which I am. Now, when you want to go back and fix a layer that's already been adjusted, in the tools, right now I'm in play mode. In the tools, I have to select effects. Once you've done that, then you click on the actual effect. And see, there's no mask on here, so I'm going to enable the mask, and that cuts everything out in the background. And then I'm going to add a filter, which is reveal area. And then all I'm going to do is just draw this out. And once you do that, that reveals this area instead of the whole damn thing. And then if I wanted to get some clouds in there, maybe I'll have some clouds near the top. So what I can do is add another layer, which is an effects layer. Effects is its own channel, its own layer. So now what I'm going to do is take this effect and I'm going to assign it as clouds. And as you can see, it's all over the map. It looks more like mist or something instead of clouds. So I want to limit the area that it's actually in. So I'm going to trace an area around here where the tops of the trees are. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, enable the mask. And then I'm going to draw an area up here that's pretty much just a square, because that's pretty much the most of the area that I want to unfilter. And as you see, the clouds go through there, but not the rest. So now I'm going to hit Control Alt, and draw around this area where I want the clouds to be. And you can't really see it because the clouds are actually up here in this lighter area. So you can play with the offset here. So here we got some clouds coming in. You can make them thicker, slow them down a little bit, which I'm going to do. And then you can define how much shadow is coming from the cloud, so I can actually control the amount of shadow. So that just added a little bit of cloud layer to the upper part, so it gives it that illusion that there's clouds in the background running through here. And you can see this line is a little bit harsh, so I might have to adjust how the clouds look. There we go. So that blends in a little bit better. So I had it too dark because I had way too much contrast for shadow. I don't mind a little bit, but this allows for it to be blended into the photo better. And then if the snow is too intense, like right now I can't see the clouds because of the snow. So if I switch the position, now the clouds will be riding on top of the snow, but that's not really the correct illusion you want, but you can see the clouds better by doing that. Technically, the snow should be on top of the clouds, but then you can't hardly see it. So it's up to you how you want to mitigate that. But that's basically how you would add some environmental stuff. You can also add something really fancy to these windows here. Maybe this light. So this little light here will give off a little shimmer. So I'm just going to take and add an effect on here to kind of make it move a little. So what I'll do is I'm going to put a water effect on here just to kind of give it a weird wavering kind of effect. So even though it's not water, I'm just going to use this little square right here and detail that out. Probably won't even notice it. So I'm going to go ahead and add another effect. And this time, instead of, clouds and such, I'm going to add water. Now, when I zoom out, that's crazy. We don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and add a mask. And what you can do is kind of add this layer, or actually include the layer, or line it out. So I'm going to actually zoom in, and I'm going to make this little rectangle here. So I'm going to take this water, and actually I'm going to turn this down a little bit, and then I'm going to exclude this area, or I'm going to filter it to where it doesn't come through. Okay, so there's that. And I can adjust that so it's not so weird looking. And the other thing I want to do is put it behind the snow. So that way this layer is not sticking in front of the snow or the clouds. It's actually further back. So that way it gives it that stacked effect so it's not actually crazy looking. And then I'm going to take this and kind of adjust this a little bit so it's not so obvious. Yeah, that gives that a little teeny bit of movement. And that's what you want. It's just it's like it's flickering. Yep, I like that. And then what you could do is take and add some distortion to it so it's not just one big pulse. Because it kind of looks like a candle's in there burning or something. So if you want to make it look a little bit more fuzzy, you can add the ocean effect. And it would be the same type of thing, except for it'll be more distortion. So that's the ocean effect. So that's a little crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and put the mask on here. And then I'm going to just open up this part. And now you have a little bit more distortion in there. So I will turn that down so it's not so too distorted. And then here's the horizontal size, so we don't need to mess with that too much. Vertical size, yeah, we want that. And turn the speed down. So now you have this thing that looks like it's alive, like it's actually handling things. You can also do the same thing with this treetop, but you got to be really careful with it. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through and make some of these branches move just ever so slightly. You can also do it with these treetops, but I think it'd be more prevalent if I just use this one tree to give it life. So first of all, I'm going to take all these effects and put them in a folder. So in this folder, I'm going to call these environmental effects or something like that. Yeah, weather effects. And the ocean, I want to move that down where that water is. Okay. And then all of these are going to go in the weather effect. So now they're in their own folder. And now that light looks like it's actually pulsing, which is what I wanted. So I think it'd be cool if you went to the windows and you put just a real tiny bit of distortion so it looks like somebody's inside. When they walk by the window, it creates a little bit of shadow. I think that would be really neat. But that's just me. That's going over the top. So now I'm going to work on this tree, see if this works out. This may not work, so we'll find out. So again, I'm going to add an effects layer. I'm going to add the ocean effect, or excuse me, the water effect. I'm going to add a mask so I don't have the whole thing moving on me. And then what I'm going to do is just trace parts of this tree inside a little bit, not on the outside. I want to kind of keep inside the tree. So what I'm going to do is trace this, and this again is going to have to go behind the snow. So it should stay underneath this effects pile. So I'm going to hit the control key or the alt key and draw a little bit of this stuff out. And it'll look better once I fix this, once I make the adjustments. See, right now it's kind of goofy looking, but until I get it set. And I'm going to stay away from the cabin and do the wavery more on this side because that's the side the wind's coming from. So I want to lessen the amount of effect on this side and focus more on this side more. So the left side will have a little bit more movement. And you notice I'm drawing them in towards the trunk. So if you draw it all the way across, sometimes it doesn't look right. So you want to draw it as a branch, not as a solid piece if you can help it. And I got to fix this top thing here. There we go. So from a distance, it kind of gives it that branch waving thing, the effect of branch waving. So I'm going to do a few more of these to kind of give it some life. Okay, so now here's the challenge is to kind of make it blend in so it's not so obvious. So turn the speed down just a little bit so it doesn't look like it's, gale force winds. And then you want to kind of play around with the intensity because obviously that doesn't look right. So you need to kind of turn down the intensity so it's not so obvious that it's, that's not moving too far. And you're looking for subtlety here. You're not looking for, a really extreme change here. So now the next thing is I want to put this effect underneath the snow. There we go. So that way the snow is on top of those reflections, not, behind. You could barely tell. So from a distance, you can barely tell, but it gives it some movement. And of course, you could do a little bit for this tree here if you wanted to, but I think that's gonna be too much. So if you do too much of that, like if you did a whole outline here, it wouldn't look right. You'd have to do little branches at a time. And it could be very time consuming. So you have to, decide what's important to you. You do also something for the smoke. You could probably take the same type of illusion and do the same thing. So if I started from this chimney stack, let me see if I can do it. And I better put it on a different layer, even though it's the same effect. So I'm going to add a new effect, and this is going to be snow, or water, excuse me. And then I put the mask on. And then I'm only going to reveal parts of this. So I don't want to reveal everything. I want to make it look like puffy snow or clouds. So what I'm going to do is start from the stack here and work my way out. Yeah, it's already kind of looking cool. And then I can draw like another one right here. So I turned it down, turned the droplet size down, turn the intensity down a little bit. See if I go up higher, it's going to look okay. Right about there. The speed is down. Horizontal is a little bit better. If you turn it down too much, then it won't. So now you can just kind of see the smoke kind of wavering out of the chimney, which is kind of cool. So now that I have that, I want to make sure that this is behind the snow. So now the wavery effects will be behind the snow. Because supposedly the snow's kind of in front of you, in a sense. I mean, it's all around, but it gives you the illusion that it's sitting in front of you. So that's basically how you do that. And then that's basically what... and then if you want to get rid of the clouds in the background, you can hide different things and, whatever you need to do to make it more realistic for you. But that's just how to bring your photos to life, to give them a little bit of movement and to give you some subtlety to where it's not overwhelming. So I'm just getting that up to where you can just barely see those color changes. There we go. That's still blended in, but every now and then you'll see that bleed out. And that's exactly what you want. So you can see it wavering there. So I turned down the horizontal and the intensity. And now you don't get those big ripples and it's still moving. So that's what you want. You want a little in the tree as well. So that tree is barely moving. But when you zoom in here, you can see it. So it's just kind of something to make things look cool. All right, so that's that. So recenter it, lock it, call it good. Thanks for tutorials and walkthroughs. I try to catch them when I can, and I always pick up something new. That's great. Dude guy, awesome. Yeah, that's something that, that we focus on these maps, but we have tools now to where we can actually bring to life photos. And I think that's important as well. There's no point in having a really nice graphic. No one really looks at it. So I think this is helpful. Okay, so now we're going to start getting more into maps. So this is Haglin's Bathhouse. So Haglin is one of our NPCs. And I have to make sure that I'm actually entering or messing with the right copy. Okay, so here's Haglin's. I've already done a little bit of work to it. I have this steam effect, and it's kind of occluded to this area. And then I also have the water that's occluded to this area. It's a steam bath type thing. And then you have these plants that benefit from uh, the steam that comes up from the hot springs, and it's piped into this tub. And this tub is pretty deep. It's like about maybe 6 feet at the most, maybe less than that, 5 feet maybe. And it's supposed to be where you can take this ladder and sit around the edge here, and it comes up to about your chest. And then there's a big pipe here that's brought in underground that is fed by a natural hot spring. And then you have some bathrooms down here. There's a toiletry area on both sides, and then a washroom. And then you have this carpeted area so you don't slip and fall. And then you have your stairs that lead down. And then these stairs actually lead down into a kind of a waiting dressing room where you can store your clothes. So basically, you get changed in here, you get naked in here, and then you come through here. And at this point, you're not supposed to have any clothes on, basically. And then you go down into this garden area, and there's the tub. Now, the reason this is elevated, so any water that gets on your body or whatever, it basically drains, and it goes to this lowest center point, which drains in where the toilets drain in. So all the runoff comes out, and the floor is slightly sloped, so any form of water is going to pool and drain. It's the way it's set up and designed. But that's a very subtle design thing that most people wouldn't notice. And then you have the entrance, of course, and there's a door here. So what I'm going to do is go through and do all the doors and windows first. So here's another door. There's not too many windows because I don't want a peep show here, so there's a couple. So these windows are actually about 4.5, 5 feet up in the air. So if you're not very tall, you can't see in the windows. You have to be super tall or something like that. So maybe they're even 6 feet off the ground, but they are higher up by design. They let in natural light, but they're not meant for looking in and out. Okay, so this is the bathhouse. I'm going to recenter the map. And one of the things that you want to be careful of when you're working on maps from another module is you want to make sure that that layer is locked. If you move this for any reason, all your coordinates will be off. So when you open this for the first time as a copy, make sure it's locked. Once it's there, leave it there, because it has the original coordinates. And if you move that thing anywhere and start building on it, when you go to export the data and it goes with the other module, all the lines will be off. So just be careful with that. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to take a look at how to handle or how to tackle this. So there's so many ways to do it, but the more I study it, the more I look at it, the easier it gets for me as far as how I want to attack it. And that's the half the battle there, is learning what to go after first. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the windows and the doors. So I'll start with the door tool. So right now I'm going to zoom out, kind of get an idea where the doors are. So there's obviously going to be one here. So I'm going to say that this is a big double door, and I'm going to probably just a big single door, but it's the size of a double door. So I'm just going to make one door. There's no point in having two. And then this is an entryway with a doorway here. So we have this, and this is kind of an entryway. So we could just make this a kind of like a curtain type thing where you just walk in because it's like an archway. But I think that'd be much too cold for this type of climate, so there has to be a door of some sort. So it's probably a stone doorway, something like that. So I'll just put a door here anyways. All right, so we have all the effects here. So I'm going to put those in a folder just so they're out of the way. So I want to make sure I got this right. So water, ocean needs to go below the water, and then the mist is on top. So I'll just call this effects. And then here's the bathhouse. That's this layer. Now I'm going to go to the line of sight layer, which is this brick wall tool. And you have all these different options here, and then you have all these different shapes. So when you're working with line of sight, or any tools for that matter, you want to make sure that you have the correct tool selected before you move on. That's a habit that you need to get into, and it's hard because you want to move things, and that's basically something that's going to drive you nuts at first. So what I'm going to do is draw rectangles for the doors. And I recommend that you make the rectangle just a tad bit bigger than the door. And the reason for that is when you go to play and you're in play mode, it's hard to activate and deactivate and lock the doors if they're really thin. So that's just a word of advice. So it's okay if it's a little bit thicker than the door that's presented to you. So I'm going to go to the door mode, and it's going to make a rectangle type thing here. So I'm just going to start from maybe about here and just draw this thing out, and it's just going to make a rectangle. It's no big deal. And try to get it as centered as I can. Doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, it's about good. And there's your door. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm not going to follow this rounded contour. I'm just going to make a rectangle. So at the farthest point, you want to make your door. Not bad. So if you keep doing this, life's going to get easier on you. So try to keep a practice or some sort of way, a methodology to what you do. So I'm going to try to stick to this format. So I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, a little minor problem here. It's not really even a problem yet, is that I am trying to basically slice an atom here, and you don't want to do that with line of sight. You'll drive yourself nuts. However, if you need to make an adjustment, you can do Control Z to totally wipe out what you're doing, or you can take these points and collect. You want to select the select tool, and you can actually stretch these out a little, and that takes care of that. So I'm still in the select tool. So when I want to go back to the doors, I'm going to go to the rectangle tool, even though it already makes a rectangle. Just get in the habit of switching between these tools. That is very important. Same thing with this door. I'm going to draw this door out. They don't have to be perfect. I mean, you want them close, but when you're not really that close up, you don't have to worry about it. I mean, no one's going to see that it's off by that much. So just be careful with where you put it, but you don't have to be 100% accurate. If you're that way, you're going to be spending a month on one map. Okay, so then here's another door. So just make sure you're on the door tool and on the rectangle tool. If you start messing with something else and come back, you have to always check to see where you're at. Because when you switch between tools, it resets every time. So you want to make sure that you're on the correct tools. So I want to go ahead and add this square here. Actually, rectangle, it's not a square. So there's some doors. Now the rest of these look like windows, so just let me check. Yep. So here's the other doors on this side. And the only reason I'm zoomed in is just so I intersect this doorway. And I want to move this one up just a little. I think I cut it a little close. So again, I'm on the selection tool, the pointer. And all I'm going to do is move this point up a little. Just like that. Nothing fancy. All I did was take the selection tool, select a point, left click and drag it up. And that created that arcway, that kind of this linear line. And when you zoom in, you'll be able to tell if you're straight or not. So that's pretty close. Here's the other door. Again, I'm making sure I'm on the rectangle and the door. I don't think you have to select rectangle, but I just do it out of habit. The only time you really need to do these is when you're freehand drawing in the line mode for the walls, but it's nice to know what tool you're on because that often throws you off. Like you'll be in the selection tool and you're trying to select something instead of draw it or vice versa. So be careful with that. If you don't, you'll drive yourself bananas. Okay, there's that door. It's kind of fat for a door, but oh well. And there's a window here, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, one more door, I think, for the commode, and we're almost done with doors. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this. And this one, I got a little bit too aggressive on how far to the left. So again, I'm going to click on the select tool and I'm going to move it in just a little bit. I don't know if you can see this, but when you're right on, this is a solid line. When you're off, you'll start seeing more white on one side or the other. So you have to zoom in if you're trying to get that accurate, but in this case, it's probably not that big of a deal. Okay, so we got all the doors done, and then we have now a bunch of windows to do. So windows are very much the same, except for they let you do everything except for walk through them. So the window is very similar to the door, except for you can't walk through them. You can open the window, but you can't walk through it. It's a kind of a just slightly different behavior than the doors. And for the windows, I will make them closer to the dimension because you're not going to use the windows as often as the doors unless you're a rogue. But I'm going to go ahead and draw these a little bit closer to the dimension they're supposed to be. They're still going to be clickable because they're rectangular, but if you just have a line, you still want to have like a little rectangle. That way it's easy to select when you're in play mode. So I'm going to go ahead and draw these. I'm going to make sure I'm in the rectangle and on the window. And now I'm going to draw these out. So that looks pretty good. You notice there's no windows in the dressing room. Now these windows are higher up in the bathhouse. By the way, Mopsy made this map. So if you guys are from Fantasy Grounds College and you want a decent map, and he doesn't charge you a lot. I mean, he charges you, but not an arm and a leg. So it's fair. So I'm not too worried about the grid. I'm just more worried about, where the window's lining up at. So I got stuck in a situation. So I accidentally drew this way too far. So there's a way you can deal with this. You can either hit Control Z and start over, or go to the Select tool, drag these back. There we go. So there's the window. Again, I want to make sure I'm in the rectangle tool and the window tool. Okay, still working on windows. I believe these windows are full. I don't think they're half windows. Okay, so that is basically the windows. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to the wall tool. Now there's a lot of debate on how to do this. I honestly like the line method. Some people will use a rectangle. That would work pretty good on this thick wall right here. But as far as the rest of the walls, I would basically make something to cut through this line here. So what I'm going to do is just draw a big line on the outside and cut all the way through. So what I'm going to do is start at the top, probably right about in the center here, and draw down. So if you click on the map in line mode and you are on the wall mode, so I'll start my line and then I'll use the arrow key to drive me down to the bottom. Okay, so I had a problem there, so I need to go ahead and draw this line again. So I'm going to click here and use the arrow key to drive me to the bottom. Once you get to your point, double click, and that will stop the editing mode, or you can hit escape. Now you have a nice straight line. And then I'm going to follow this yellow line through the other way. So I'm going to go to select mode, select that line, go to line mode, and again I'm going to use this point with my arrow keys. And then I double click to get out of that line mode. You notice I'm not worried about the doorways. We can deal with that later. Or the windows. So we just want to get the main outline done in the beginning. So that's important. So let's see. Now I'm going to go in, zoom in here, pick this location. You want to make sure that you're in the line mode and in the wall. And if you zoom in, you can notice that we are connected. Sometimes when you're doing this freehand, you will be off a little. You can actually go in and select it and join. But for the most part, if you just do it with the arrow keys, it should be straight. All right, so now we have this wall in place, the main outlying wall. Now for the actual work. So we have all these little surfaces and things to consider when we're building this. So if we follow the same format, I'm actually going to draw around this thing here. So I'm just going to select this yellow line, intersect here, and continue. So I want to make sure I'm in the line mode and in wall mode. It's very important you keep an eye on that. Until you get used to Fantasy Grounds, you're going to have a hard time with that. It's just getting used to using the tool. And the reason I say that is if you switch to a different tool and you come back, it's not always going to be set the way you left it. So that's one thing you have to be careful with. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing these inner walls. And I'm going to start with this center and work my way down. So again, I'm going to use this line here and the arrow key. That doesn't look half bad. But as you can see, it is off a little bit. So if you feel bad about that, you really have to fix it. Then, like I said, you go to the select mode and you just lightly drag this over. I mean, it was just a real minor change. Same thing with this. This looks off a little, like it's leaning to the left. So what I'm going to do is just stretch this out a little. There we go. No big deal. All right, so I'm going to cut through here just like we would earlier. Use these vertices here as a point of reference. And see, I was clicking here and I wasn't selected on the right tool, so I need to make sure I'm on the line tool. I was clicking when I was on the select, and that's not what you want. Not in this case. I'm trying to plot a point, not select the line. I'm going to go right through the door to the next point. That kind of helps keep it linear, and you're not creating more lines than you need to. Same thing with this. I'm going to draw out here to about here, and then draw down, and then use the mouse to, or the, what you call it, to move me, the arrow keys. And here you can see I'm off a little bit. So again, select tool. That straightened it right up. Now I got to go back to the line tool. See, this is where people get messed up. You got to be able to go back and forth. See, as you can see, I went too far, but I'll fix that in a minute. So sometimes you want to fix it as you go, and then other times you just want to keep going and then go back and fix it. So I'm going to go back to select mode and select this point and just move it where I think it should go. And it looks pretty straight, so we're looking good. So this is getting to be almost done now. I got to do this side and this bottom part, so we're getting there. So these are very time consuming when you work on these. It's just a matter of how serious are you with this map? Are you going to sell it, or are you going to use it for your own private games? So I don't think too many game masters want to create line of sight right before their game. I think it's something you need to do on a weekend when you got no other commitments. You got to have a couple hours to kind of dabble with it. Otherwise, just get a map that's already got the lines and just go with that. So you have to pick your battles. So if you're going to sell something, then definitely go through all this work. If you're just going to run a campaign or module, if you have a store-bought one, they usually come with the line of sight on it, or if it doesn't, it will. And that would be a matter of you just being patient and waiting for that to update or do it yourself. But generally speaking, store purchased or things on the DM's Guild, if they're official products, they'll have, or not the DM's Guild, but the Fantasy Grounds store. Some of the DM's Guild is starting to get line of sight. So now I'm going to go through and take a look at what I've done. And I'm going to recenter the map. And it looks okay. It looks like I'm getting there. I mean, I got a few things that I want to add and such, but it looks pretty dang good. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and keep going. So again, I'm going to use this line here to find a center point. I want to make sure I'm in the line tool because I wasn't. I was in the pointer tool and the wall tool. And then I'm going to center up right about here. And I actually went a little bit too far, but I'll fix that later. So again, I have to go to selection tool to select the point. There we go. So you don't have to make this such a problem if you're just kind of systematic about it. It's when you're all over the place and you're trying to do too many things at once when you get screwed up. So I'm going to finish joining these two lines together since I'm already here. So line mode, click inside of this box, this little teeny white box. Use my arrow key to go down. And there's that. So that ties these together. And now I'm going to go up this way and around. So I'm in the line tool and the wall. Are there keyboard shortcuts to select nodes so it can be set as a macro? You know, there probably is, but I don't know all the shortcuts. And what happens is all the keyboard shortcuts change. So if you have a Mac, it's different. There's also changes between each tool. So I'm not as familiar with the shortcuts as I should be, but I just kind of draw through there. I'm sure there's a couple, but I don't know how they would apply universally. So that's where I would get kind of messed up because I'd be in one tool thinking I'm drawing a line when I'm not, and I don't think there's too many of them. So if that's the case, if there are, it would be on the wiki. So there's a whole wiki guide on how to use these map tools. And if there's shortcuts there listed there, that's where you're going to find them. I personally don't know of too many shortcuts, but I don't think there's a macro that can be set in that particular case. Because there's so many tools to select through that it changes mode, and also they have to consider Mac too. So I don't think there is, but I could be wrong. I haven't seen anyone use them effectively if there are. Except for maybe Josh. Okay, so here I'm going to draw from here to here, or actually a little bit further down. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. Not going to go up quite as far as that. Again, using the arrow keys. When you're done with the line, make sure you double click or hit escape. That way it continues drawing the line. Because you could have it drawn out, but it's not set at that point. So when you want to set it, you double click on wherever you're ending or hit escape. So we have a line here, line there. You also have to be careful when you're on the map. Like I just accidentally drew a line somewhere out here. So be careful with that. Okay, so we're getting there. So I guess I'll start in the center piece here. Again, when you're going to connect a line, zoom in a little bit. And then when you find that you're straight or close to being straight, if you don't double click, this is what you'll get. So if you want to make sure that you're double clicked on there. Now, if you look at this line, it's a little bit crooked. So if you really have to, you can go to the select tool and move it ever so slightly. We're getting mighty close. Okay, so I'm going to draw this line here. See, I wasn't in the line tool. So I got to go here, make sure I'm in the wall tool. Yeah, that gets me all the time. I'm not used to it. So every time I click somewhere, I got to make sure I'm in the right tool. Okay, so I'm going to come in, zoom in here and fix this a little bit. So it's just off a little. So I'm just going to stretch it over to the left a little. All right, good enough. All right, now I'm going to go to the line tool. Make sure I'm in the wall mode. Now that that's drawn, as you can see, it's off a little bit. So I'm going to adjust this one down in select mode. So if you have trouble, you can take the snap off. Okay. Then I'm going to turn the snap back on. Yeah, close enough. So once you get into this, you'll start realizing that some stuff is just not worth the trouble. All right, so we're pretty much done, I think, with the walls. Oh, nope, I got one more here. Just when you think it's over. So line tool, wall. And as you can see, I wasn't fully selected on the line. There we go. So we're close. All right, so the next step is to adjust the doors and such. So right now I have a bunch of doors and windows that are intersected by these lines. So I have to remove that line. If you don't, it's not going to look right. Doesn't the line inside the door need to be removed? Yes. Yeah, it's either, yeah, Carl's right. You overshoot the line and add a new point. Yep, I agree. Yep, the lines do need to be removed. So I'm going to take and open up this section here. So I'm just going to draw a freehand line. So I need to make sure I'm in the line tool. And I want to make sure that I'm on the brick wall. And I'm going to cross this line here. So again, I'm inside the doorway. And I need to make these points. In other words, if I don't, I can't delete this point and that point on the other side of the door. Otherwise, it'll delete to the continuous lines on the outside. So then I just double click on these vertices here. And then hit this delete points. And I have to make sure I'm in the select tool. Once I double click, it selects all 3 of these points. And then I'm going to hit this delete points. Whoops. And then now you have this point here in which you can delete that. Oops. I goofed up. So let me see. Back to line mode. There we go. And then select mode. I got all the lines selected. I hit delete. Is that right? I thought I had it right. Yeah, I think I need to delete this intersected line instead. So I will go to the line mode. Well, that's goofy. What? Okay, there we go. Let's see. Ah. Okay, so anyways, you make a line here, and it creates a vertex here where the lines intersect. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but I'm in the select mode. And I know if you select this line and the other two, you can delete this, and it should technically delete from here on over. Let me see if that works. No, it took the whole line out. Okay, I mean, I'm close. I don't know what I did wrong, but okay, hold on a sec. I mean, I've watched the video 100 times. I don't know why I can't do this. So go to select tool. There we go. That's all I did wrong. So I didn't select all the points. All right, so there we go. So that gets rid of that. And then you would continue the same process throughout this map. So I would do the same thing here. So I'm in the line mode. Take that, go to select mode, highlight and select all of those. And hit delete. So I was making it harder than it needed to be. Thanks, Carl, by the way. Nice to meet you. Let's see. So the same thing here. So you just systematically go through everything and delete that out. So you just go around and you would just take this and make sure that all of your windows and doors and anything that needs to be opened has some sort of interaction here. So I'm going to take and draw these out. And then hit the select tool and then highlight these points. So on and so forth. So I'm going to check my work here real quick. So I have a character on the combat tracker. I'm going to lock the map temporarily. Exactly. I'm going to go to play mode and then enable line of sight and then lock this. And then I'm going to bring a token in. So as you can see out the window, there's no leakage. The door is closed, so he can open the door. There's the door to the bathroom. There's the door to the outside. Or this is the washroom. Yeah, so it looks right. It's pretty close. Now I'm going to go back to edit mode, turn off play mode, go back into line of sight mode, and disable line of sight for right now. And you can see I have these bowls of water. So what I might do is add an effect to the bowls of water. And it's going to be very subtle. I think we met in Florida. No, actually I didn't go to Florida, Carl. I'm friends with Rob and a bunch of those guys down there, but I didn't make it to Florida. I was a patron subscriber. I did the $500 thing. Lady Shell and I did, but that was I didn't get to meet you in Florida, unfortunately. But I've been around, so. And I appreciate you coming in here and helping because I want this tool to look good and I don't want it to look bad. So I'm learning. I've really come a long ways though since I saw you last when you were like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? Not quite that bad anymore. Okay, so I'm going to make an effects layer. And on this layer, I'm going to make it a water layer. So click effects and select this layer first. Then go ahead and add the water layer. And as you can see, the whole map is covered with water. So I'm going to put a mask over the top. And then I'm going to single out these little water vessels here. So I want to reveal, which is what I'm going to do, this little area right here. So I'm just going to square this out. Actually, I'll freehand this. Carl, is there any way to get a shape tool here? Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt. So I'll take these and uncover them. And as you can see here, I got a little too close to the edge of this pool. So if that happens to you, you technically can come back and just kind of you can cover up a little bit close to the edge of the water. Another thing that helps is to turn down some of these settings so it's not so drastic. So if I turn these down, now you just have a slight ripple and it's not as dramatic. I think that really looks good. So now you have these pools of water. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make sure I'm in the reveal. And I'm going to hit Alt to freehand it. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So these are wash basins, basically, with a little wheel that allows you to adjust how much water comes in here. All right. So you want those to look subtle. They don't need to move that much. So I think 5 looks really good. It looks more realistic. And we have our bathtub that's kind of doing the same thing. I have to mess around with the clouds, so I'm going to put this water effect in the effects folder. This is an effect that I haven't used, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, so there's some mist here. I want to adjust that. There we go. I didn't want that mist to be so bright where it's covering up the tub, because you can kind of see the ripples there in the water for the bathtub. So that's basically most of that. The other thing about the effects is that if they go outside the boundary of your map, you can mask it and only reveal the map area, so you don't have snow and water on the outside. So that's something to keep in mind. So when you put a mask on it, it usually takes care of that problem. So that's pretty much the majority of this. So let's take another look at this. So I'm going to go to play mode, and I want to enable line of sight. If you're not in play mode and you don't have line of sight on, you're not going to see anything. So now I'm going to lock the map, and I'm going to add my character again, which he's already there. Okay, what did I do here? Oh, maybe what did I do? And delete this. Maybe the link broke. Okay, so let me go back. Oh, maybe I deleted the line of sight layer. Hope not. Line of sight. Yeah, I think I did. Oh my God. What a pain in the ass. So, there we go. I think I deleted the line of sight layer. Yeah, there we go. That wasn't too slick. Okay, so now we have line of sight. I just hit Control Z to get out of that mess. All right, there we go. So now when he opens the door and walk in, and you can see the water basins moving. Now I don't have no turds in the toilet. However, I can add a little stain around these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an effects layer, and I'm going to assign this to a color change. So let me go to Effects, and I'm going to change this to Adjust Colors. And I'm going to basically quarantine this area here. So if you change the color now, you can see it changes the whole map. I don't want that. So I'm going to hit a mask layer. And then I'm just going to draw just around the periphery of these. And then I'm going to adjust the colors. So probably around the back end more so than the front. So let me go into reveal mode, and I'm just going to lightly, oops, I'm going to hit Alt and draw around. Okay, I'm going to give it that worn poop stain look, so I want to, well, I didn't want to include this, so I guess I'm going to mask this area again. So I'm going to exclude this part. Because I don't want that to affect the inside. Now you have to remember, this is really getting too deep into it, but basically you could change the brightness and the intensity and the colors, and you can take a color picker and basically, let's see, let's go to, oops, just colors. If you go to, where you can draw, or you have like a color, you can select the color of this stucco brown brick color and get close and then adjust from there. So I'm just gonna kind of play around with this a little bit. I kind of want it to look just a little bit darker brown. So anyways, you can do a lot of little minor things like that, and from a distance it kind of looks like the toilet seats are soiled, or maybe they're cleaner, who knows. Yeah, so just a slight color variation can make a difference on shadowing and that sort of thing. So you'd have to be a little bit closer to the color, the natural color of the brick, and then start from there, because you could be too red or too green. I think it looks pretty good. So you could just kind of make various color changes if you had to. So he's gonna, Doric here is gonna go, I don't want to use that bathroom. That thing's been used too much. No one's cleaned it in a while. See, this door is open. It can be closed and shift to lock. So when it's locked, technically as a player, he can't go through here. Since I'm the game master, I can move him through. But if it was a player, they'd have a hard time getting through there. I think you deleted. Yeah, I did. Yeah, thanks, Carl. I figured it out. All right, so now that we have this thing mapped out, what's going to happen is once I'm done, I'm going to take all of this data and make sure that it matches and it's all nice and tidy and the titles match. And I'm going to lock them all up and close them, and I'll get rid of this character from the PC area. Once I do that, I'm going to save it as a campaign. And then what I'll do is I'll take the extraction tool that's provided by SmiteWorks, and I'll extract the line of sight data from this instance and add it to the original file that was made in Classic. And what it will do is it'll read that information if you put it in Unity, and it will ignore that information if you use it in Classic. So you can use this module in both cases. So that's the nice thing about using the extraction tools. If you build something in Unity and it was already in Classic, you could technically just do your own line of sight data, export it, and all it's doing is just sending over the coordinate data and the file names and the locations and where they are in space. So XYZ, that stuff. And then also the color changes and the lines and definition file basically. So once you have all that, then it will extract that data from the module that you're working, or the setting or the campaign folder you're working in, and it will take it and push it into the it's a separate file, but you can add it to, if you add it to the correct area next to the map that's being edited, this program, the Unity, will read that definition file and reapply the lines. So even if it's not embedded in this module, as long as that data is there, it'll read it. I hope I said that correctly. It sounds about right. So basically, that's how you would start going about your line of sight. I haven't even touched the brush tools, but there's a whole bunch of nice brush tools that are out there now that you can use to paint things on. There's some more things coming up that are probably not even released yet. Just a lot of things coming up in the future that will be available to us as we progress. By no means, even though Fantasy Grounds is out of beta, that doesn't mean it's not going to change. There's still going to be changes coming up, and I'm sure there's features coming up as well. So stay tuned for that, and hopefully this helped eliminate a little bit of the mysteries. And I actually got some work done today. So instead of just working by myself, I went ahead and I got help from all of you and Carl, who's one of the main developers of this. And I was able to share this with you and kind of show you what's going on with it. And if you're watching this in the future and you're not part of our community, please join Fantasy Grounds College and the Fantasy Grounds community. We'll teach you and we'll do the best we can to learn you how to use this. You will evolve with the program, so as things change, you'll have to change with it. Just by setting down this program for a month, I haven't really used it much. But when just in the short time that I've, like 3 weeks that I haven't messed with it, it's gone through a lot of good changes. So if you haven't used it in a while, I recommend that you do. And pretty much everybody in the college is starting to migrate over to Unity anyways. So if you are a Classic fan, we still have things to teach you. But if you want to be part of the future and the growth, you want to eventually migrate over to Unity, and you'll appreciate it. Just make sure your computer's up to snuff and that you have the right amount of RAM and such, because some people have upgraded and realized that their computer's not handling it as well as it could. So be careful on that. And the rest of you, have a good night, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.